Okay.
What is that on your shirt? It's a band.
Ingrata.
Ingrata.
Sacramento hardcore.
What's going on, y'all? This is Alexander. You are plugged into the Nerd Companion.
What's going on, y'all? This is Alexander from the Nerd Companion coming at you with an episode going over one of my favorite horror movies of all time, The Evil Dead, partnered here with my Chainsaw Massacre friend, Artemio Maltos. Artemio, give us a quick introduction.
Hey guys, what's up? My name's Art. Long time, first time, so I'm happy to be here.
Long time, first time. What does that mean?
Long time listener, first time caller. Okay.
Oh. So I thought that meant like long time, first time, as in long time. We haven't talked in a long time, but first time on the show.
Yeah, you know what? It means both. We'll just go with that.
Yeah. No. So I'll talk a little bit about you. I always really enjoyed your company in the military. Really, I don't have any regrets, but I really wish we could have hung out a lot more before when we started. Super funny, super supportive, really great friend. Really interesting person that I found at a time that I really needed someone like that, and was always very appreciative of your presence. And it was really good to catch up with you. Like, you're a really awesome dude. Not to
I appreciate that so much. Yeah, dude. Whenever I talk about you, I say the exact same thing. Like, there's like a certain type of person that's in the military, and I don't necessarily hit it off with some of them sometimes.
Yeah.
And when I met you on deployment, halfway through deployment, and I just remember being like, this guy's like super fucking funny and warm.
He is all right in moderation.
Yeah. No. Warm emotionally, not physically, but
I thought you were very warm physically.
Thank you.
So yeah, I remember when this movie first came out, we were in Jacksonville, and I remember you asking me if I liked the Evil Dead movies, which I did. And when this movie came out, I remember being super skeptical about having a remake. I mean, how did you feel about that?
Yeah, I think around that time, they were like pumping out remakes of like classic horror movies. And for one that was like as beloved as Evil Dead is, and Evil Dead 2 and Army of Darkness, it seemed like it was like, why would you mess with that kind of thing? And then, I saw it and it blew me away. Yeah.
So tell me, how did you feel about the original three? So give us a quick, snippet of, 1 through 3, what kind of movies they were, what their intentions were, just real quick, just because I know that you enjoyed them a lot.
Yeah. So I know that the first one was made by Sam Raimi and Bruce Campbell, like on a shoestring budget. I think it was somewhere in Michigan. I can't remember exactly, but they filmed it. It was called The Evil Dead. I don't think it did great. I'm not sure.
I think they wanted to be serious when they did it.
Yeah. And then I know that the remake, or not the remake, but Evil Dead 2 came out, and that it's like one of the coolest ideas where they're just like, yeah, we'll just remake it essentially, but we'll just call it number 2 because it's like the exact same plot.
It's the exact same plot, but I think they, when they realized how campy or kitsch, I can't remember the difference between kitsch and camp, but the ones that they didn't intend on it being tacky and it ended up tacky. I think they realized that that's what happened. And so when they made the second one, they're like, no, let's just make it as wild as possible.
Yeah. And you could really see Sam Raimi's like eye for slapstick, and Bruce Campbell's ability to do that was like one of the best pairings. And then my introduction to the film franchise was like in the 90s, Sci-Fi Channel would always have like really dope like B movies on there. And
I
remember,
either really bad or really good.
Yeah, dude. And then one day I like caught it like halfway through, and I was like, I don't know what, I'm like maybe 10. And I'm like, I don't know what this is, but I'm like fully on board for it. It is just cuckoo bananas. Like,
yeah,
this he made a hand out of a like knight's glove and like a science textbook. And he's got a chainsaw arm.
Army of Darkness.
Yeah.
So it's funny is that the first one I ever saw was Army of Darkness. I didn't see Evil Dead. My parents would never let me watch that as a kid, but I saw Army of Darkness, and it was on a Sunday morning on WB. like, because WB would always do like these Sunday morning like cinema things, like around 11, like after all the cartoons were over.
Mm-hmm.
I remember this coming on, and I was just so blown away by how goofy it was, because in my head it was fantasy, right? It was definitely had like a horror, like a dark fantasy horror, but
Yeah.
obviously trying to be funny. And then that's when I went back and from Blockbuster went back and was like, go to my friend's house. And again, my parents never let me watch it, but watch like Evil Dead 1 and 2. And yeah, the rest is history.
Yeah, it is interesting because like you watch the first one and there's like an earnestness to do horror in it with like almost unintentional comedy in it. And then the second one leans into that. It's still like, there are still scenes that are creepy in that movie. And then you get to the third one, and the third one feels like it's almost primarily comedy with horror elements in it. So it's like a full spectrum of like where it started and how it ended.
Yeah. So good. I guess we could segue right into the movie. I felt that one of the things I did like was that they were still able to kind of put those comedic approaches in there, but it didn't feel like it was trying to be a lot.
Yeah.
But let's get into the movie, man. The Evil Dead. I'll let you take it away. Like just give us kind of like a brief synopsis of the movie. Like what's it about?
Yeah, so these kids take their friend and sister to a family cabin that's like run down because she's overdosed. I forget if they say how many times. I know at least one time on heroin. So she's trying to kick heroin on this trip. And while they're there, she's like, they discover a book, and for some reason, I guess the guy's like never watched a horror movie before. He like cuts the barbed wire and like
you have to go through a lot to get that thing open.
Yeah, he's like, I gotta read this book.
It's so good.
And I have to read this book out loud. That was one of the things I was like, what? It's like, don't read this. Do not read this book. And he's like, okay, I guess I'll read it.
He's reading it out loud. Do not read this. Okay.
Yeah.
Do not read this out loud. Okay. Uma ta mantra. I'm really good at Latin. How did that?
Yeah, he's just patting himself on the back. He's like, I did a great job. And yeah, just a lot of horror ensues from there.
Yeah. So the beginning scene was I remember sitting in the theater not knowing if they were going to take a comedic approach, because I think at this time I was taking movies very seriously in the sense I didn't want to watch too many trailers to give like too much away, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of went into the movie blind, not really knowing what was going to be there. And so I thought the movie was going to be funny, kind of like the previous installments. And it was not. And I was very pleasantly surprised. But the beginning scene really set the tone. And I remember when they were lighting the girl on fire and everything went black, and all of a sudden the title hits and it says Evil Dead, and the fucking choir's like, and I remember sitting there and I was like getting goosebumps in the theater, and I'm going, oh yes, I'm so glad I signed up for this.
Dude, I was thinking about you the whole time because I watched the movie a couple times in preparation just to get familiarize myself with it again.
Right.
Yeah, that scene where the dad's pointing the shotgun at the daughter and he's like, "I love you, baby," and then he just blows her head off, and then it cuts. The title cuts. I was like, dude, this is probably I was just stoked. It's like this has got Alex written all over it.
It was just I'm a sucker. I feel like a soundtrack can make or break a movie.
100%.
Like have you seen those? Like, there's one YouTube video that someone made where it's like they changed the music for a trailer, and I believe I probably sent one to you, but they did a one on Elf, and it was like serious music to it, and it made it seem like he was like kind of like this serial killer.
Yeah.
And it's crazy what music can do to set the tone for something, even when it's not in the same category. And
Absolutely.
I think the music's so powerful. So I'll say that the soundtrack to this movie by O.G. Banos is like, he is so good. And they articulate the intensity and emotion so well in that picture from the get-go to that title shot.
Dude, absolutely. And I agree with you 100%. And that's like, if you get a really great director, a really great editor, and a really great composer, it's really, really, really hard to fail. I guess that's like primarily everything that's involved with the movie other than the cast. But if you do everything perfect, your movie will be all right.
Well, you can only hope, man. People are weird, man. You could make a banger and be like, that movie sucked. It's like, was my whole life. Okay.
Big deal. It's fine. I'll just...
But yeah, I thought the premise of the movie was really good. It made it seem pretty realistic and genuine with the reason why they're there, right? And I thought it was like a really believable concept of why they were there, not like, let's go to the cabin and party.
Right.
Like it just there was like a serious tone to it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, and all of it, I was watching it and I was like, a lot of times like horror movies will have tropes in it, or like a situation where you're like, why don't you just call the cops, or why don't you just like not go inside the room or something like that. And watching this movie, like the plot is pretty airtight. Like even like at a certain point, somebody has to go back inside the cabin to grab keys so that they can leave. Like, otherwise, there's no reason for them to be in there. Sorry, I just want to make sure that are you picking up any of the alerts? My phone is going off for some reason.
Yeah, I do hear that, but
okay, I don't know how to change this.
It's fine if it's like little dings there. It's cool. I can always edit that out. It's not a big deal.
Let me do this real quick. Sorry, while I'm already...
All this can be cut out. You don't hear anybody screaming in the background?
No. Sorry, I never used... I think it should be good now. I turned off my phone, but I wrote notes on it.
So some of the concepts were kind of airtight when going back to get the keys.
Yeah, because I remember going back in and watching it this time. I was like, I know what happens to a character, and I guess we can just do spoilers, right? Or no?
So let's just kind of, I mean, we got the general premise of the movie, right? They're going into this cabin and they are essentially basically trying to get, friend and sister clean from heroin because, she's got a problem.
Yeah.
And do a cold turkey. And they coincidentally have a nurse there who's, I don't know where she gets all these sedatives and meds. I don't know who she stole them from, but they, so they're basically trying to get her clean. And that there's going to be some crazy shit happening. And they foreshadow the fact that, this girl is going to try to do whatever it takes to convince everyone that they need to leave. And as real and legitimate as her qualms are about staying there, it does make it seem like she's really just trying to be manipulative and leave. And I think that was so tastefully done. It was like they did such a good job of making, gave room or gave, a margin of opportunity for her friends to be like, can you just stop tripping? You're okay. You know what I mean? Kind of not validating what she's really going. Yeah. And so I feel like that made everything so airtight as opposed to, we're just getting here, we're coming here to party. And it's like, you're just, whatever.
We're here to crush brews.
Stop being a chump, bro.
Dude, but they even mention it I liked it a lot because the two friends, Eric and I forget the other lady's name, but they're like, this isn't the first time that she's tried to kick it. And they're like, we did this before and she bailed immediately. So they're already setting you, they're letting you know why the characters aren't just like, oh yeah, this is a bad idea, let's take off.
Right.
And it's so well done. It's so well done.
So I guess given that, without giving any spoilers away, I think that we could probably safely say how highly would you recommend this movie? So if someone's watching this now and they don't want spoilers, I mean, how likely should someone watch the movie?
I think if you're a fan of horror, I think this is a must watch. I
would agree.
If I'm going out of 5, it's either it's probably the only reason I would do a 4 out of 5 is if somebody is squeamish to blood, because there's a lot of blood.
Oh yeah, my wife is like, I can't watch this. I'm just going.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I would give it a 4.2 out of 5. The movie, even if you can tolerate all the gore and stuff, I hardly give a perfect rating for anything. There's really, I can't think of, I just don't think that there's a perfect product out there. You know what I mean? There's always going to be these little minuscule things, but 4.2 out of 5, 8 out of 10. I highly recommend it. If you love horror movies, this is a must watch. This needs to be in your library. This needs to have been in your repertoire of any sort of horror history for filmmaking, for sure.
Absolutely. I just found out that there's an unrated version or a director's cut. I didn't know that was out there before. Yeah, it's an additional few minutes.
Watch it again for an extra 5 minutes of content.
I gotta see it. I gotta see the extra 5 minutes. I guess the girlfriend in that movie had a lot of extra story or footage, but they cut her entire character out of that movie.
She probably was the least important character in there.
Yeah.
But we'll get there. I mean, the way that she went was kind of miserable. It was like the slowest one. It was like she went through so much. She got the worst out of it.
She did, yeah.
Okay, so we'll get right into the spoilers. So if you haven't watched it, just know that it's a banger, and
Yeah.
you need to watch it. And if
Yeah.
you've watched it or you're coming back to after watching the movie, then enjoy the rest of what we're going to talk about. We're going to be talking about everything. Be prepared. All right, so
Welcome back.
welcome back. Okay, so what were some of your favorite parts about the movie?
I liked the kind of redemption arc that Mia has throughout that. There's characters in there that I love how much I hate them. Like the character of Eric, the teacher that ends up opening the book. Like he drives me nuts, dude. And then he's like constantly like laughing in people's faces, like when something terrible's happening, or he's just like, dude.
It's so bad, but it's like, I don't care how bad it is. I'm just glad that I'm right.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, it doesn't matter that like the whole situation is his fault. He's just like has to be right. But yeah,
It's so weird that he was not showing people the book when like the first thing happened, because everyone knew he was looking at the book, and they're probably like, "You're freaking weird." And it's like,
Yeah.
no, like these are patterns. And I think he did that like after the third one,
yeah,
but he didn't even go into an explanation as to like, I knew all this was going to happen. Well, why?
yeah,
Like-
yeah.
He didn't show anyone the book.
That's why, because he didn't want to be like, well, guys, I might have read a couple things.
You might have let Satan out of the bag, or one of the demons. But man, dude, man, yeah. So he was bad. What else you didn't like about him?
Man,
Did his hair? Was it
He-
because he looks like a typical like lo-fi artist, where he's just
dude, he kind of low-key looks like the singer from Maps and Atlases. I know that's a deep cut. I don't know if you're familiar with the band, but it's almost like twins. But he's another character that like throughout the whole movie is just consistently getting the shit kicked out of him. Like he gets stabbed in the face with a needle a bunch of times. He gets like stabbed in the chest or something like that, and then and that's like halfway through the movie.
yeah.
And then that crowbar scene is
My God.
so brutal. So brutal.
Whenever she's hitting him in the head, I'm just going, okay,
Yeah.
all right. Like every hit, I'm going, that's not good.
Dude.
That's not good.
They do that. There's that scene where they show him like raise his hand, and then she swipes the crowbar, and then you just see him with the ET Spock hand.
Yeah. He's like,
Yeah,
forever,
dude.
I can now go to the Star Trek exposés
He's
and say I'm married to the game. This is
exactly. Joke's on you. I'm a Trekkie.
Thank you. That's what I wanted.
What about you? Were there any scenes that you saw that like you felt were like more effective or just affected you more than others?
So I think when we go back to like the airtight things, when I think about all things to be considered for someone to kind of go through this and to getting someone detoxed, I think it was important that they had someone that was in the healthcare field, at least to kind of like validate, why they're doing certain things and, making it a part of the narrative. I just thought it was funny that they got like an Indian girl to be to nurse. That's like a stereotypical, like,
I love the
got
scene
the
where,
deep-seated issue, like my parents are still not happy because I'm not a doctor kind of thing. But
dude, that scene where she's like, "Oh, you're the doctor, right?" And she goes, "I'm a nurse."
which is so weird because like as a nurse, I don't understand like why that is offensive. Like I don't like when people are like, "Oh, I'm so sorry." It's like, "Why are you sorry?"
Right,
Like,
right.
It's like, "Why are you sorry?" Like that's my job.
I love that line where she's like, "I'm giving her all the treatment she'd get in a real hospital," and then she storms off.
Yeah, mad as shit. She probably, because she's probably it probably happens at work. Why aren't you doing more? I'm just doing my fucking job. I can never make anyone happy, including my parents, because I'm not a doctor. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah. So like writing into like, the medical professional there, that I thought was interesting to kind of keep things, okay, that seems more realistic instead of like some dude that's like, oh yeah, I watched a lot of ER when I was a kid.
Right.
And so I know that they would do this.
I'm huge into Grey's Anatomy. I've seen this
Yeah,
episode
huge.
before.
This is classic season 3, episode 28. Okay. All right. I've seen it twice.
Right.
So like having some sort of like realistic, like kind of, she knows it a little bit how to handle the situation. So yeah, I thought that was cool. And I just feel like when going over like some of the airtight things, hey, why isn't someone leaving, or why aren't we doing this, or why weren't the cops called? But whenever he's deciding to leave with his sister, and they go back, and the huge flood running down the bridge, and you're just like, damn, well, I mean, they can't go. So they shut that window of opportunity. Well, that's why they can't leave. Everything was just done very, very well.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Yeah,
But-
including the opening scene. The opening scene is like perfect. It's perfect. Like where they kill. Go ahead.
No. I was just confirming what you were saying. Yeah.
Yeah, where like it starts in the woods and this like lady's in terror, and then you hear like little feet, tick, 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 and she's like, "What's going on? What's going on?" And then she just wakes up in like this basement with dead kittens everywhere.
Yeah.
Like, and then that reveal that she's actually been possessed and has murdered her mom. It's so effective. It's so good. And then like I was saying, like that last line where he's like, "I love you, baby," and then it cuts to Evil Dead, and then it just cuts to like outdoor shots, like aerial coverage and stuff like that. That whole like they did such a good job with scenery, even though it like the majority of it takes place in the woods or in the cabin. Every scene that's outside of it is so good. Like, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say some of the camera work was some of my favorite. Before I go into the camera work, did they ever go into why they were in that cabin? Because it did belong to the family that ended up, like the main characters that go there. Did it talk about why those people were in that cabin to begin with? Or?
No, I didn't see
I
anything
didn't see
about
anything.
that. I tried looking up some stuff before we started the podcast, and the only thing I saw in plot details is that like they were in the basement, and that. But then it goes on to say that it was Mia and the brother's name's David, right? I should know this.
David.
Yeah, David. That it was their family's cabin.
Yeah.
Which makes sense because there's all the family pictures in there and all that stuff.
Yeah. So that was like one thing I was like, they didn't really explain that. So it's kind of like, that was weird. But I guess I was just writing it off. Like they were chasing their daughter and ended up in this fucking cabin. And they were like, I don't know. So I just kind of infer it. But yeah, to go back into the camera work, when you're talking about some of like the shots that they did, there was a lot about the cinematography in regard to the camera work that I really, really, really enjoyed. One of the techniques that they use a lot, where I would say probably 3 or 4 times, which was executed perfectly to kind of like give the intensity of the scene, is where they do this thing where they like are moving forward with the camera, but then they're like zooming out. And so it kind of plays like this illusion, like the wall is getting bigger, but you're like moving away, or like, like the way that they put I'm not a big camera guy, so I don't know all the like the jargon of like what that technique is called. But I used to do it as a kid when I would get on my dad's, like steal his VHS camera and make home movies and stuff. Like we figured
on your shoulder.
stuff like that. Yeah. But like we would do this thing where like we would zoom in and like, but zoom out, or like move forward with the camera, zoom out. And so it creates like this illusion where you're hyper focusing on your focal point or the target of the picture. And they did that whenever our favorite coffee shop owner / hipster was opening up the book, and it was behind him, and like the wall was getting bigger, but it was like coming out, and it just made it seem like, it just seems like things are warping.
Yeah.
And they do that a lot whenever what is her name? The main
Mia,
when she's like looking out into where she's like in the basement, and they're like zooming in on her, and she's like some of the, just to say, piggyback of what you're saying, it was just some of the shots that they did was just so tasteful and so good. And it articulated all of the points that they were really trying to get you to focus on that I don't think a lot of people take into account whenever you're watching something.
Right.
That I really, really enjoyed. So it's not just like the story. It's not just the music. Like they took like how they were shooting the scene, where the angle was to like get you to have a very specific perspective on what they wanted you to look at.
Yeah, and it's dope because it all like you become immersed in it. You forget that you're not watching a movie. Everything was good. I was watching it again. I forgot how good all of the makeup is in this movie. Like specifically with Mia. And that actress did such a great job, both as being possessed and then just being terrified. Like there's a scene after, that whole forest scene where
Before we go into that scene, I just want to say that the makeup in that movie was primo. I kept telling Dean, I was like, whoever the makeup artist is in this, like, deserves freaking awards.
Yeah.
Because even though there's like parts where it's like way too much, the things that were done was just so good with the makeup. Like some of the best that I've seen. And I can really appreciate good makeup over CGI any day. And And I think that James Wan, like another horror master, he does the same thing. Like he doesn't go with CGI. He does everything is just makeup.
Yeah. And
But yeah.
I think I talked to a buddy about this before, and I think it's like regardless of how good CGI gets, your mind is still aware that something is off on it.
Yeah, it can definitely pick it up.
Yeah, and I think even with practical effects, even if they're not 100% like top tier, I think that you're still allowing yourself to believe that what you're seeing, it feels a little bit more real than watching something that's CGI for me, anyways. But yeah, I'm a big practical effects guy. I like it a lot. I don't like
It needs
do it.
to be makeup.
Yeah,
No
has
room
to be.
No room
Just
for
has to be.
computer generated images.
Not in this house. I was going to talk about the forest scene.
Yes, about Mia's character.
Dude, is one of the most... That scene, after seeing it's one of those scenes that like every once in a while you think about and you're just like, damn, that was messed up. that was like one of the worst.
You're talking about when she's running through the forest and ends up falling to the trees and stuff.
Yeah. And then I guess the demon doppelganger of her like spits out the demon, and then it like crawls into her. Like it's just brutal. It's brutal. And it brings I don't know how I want to say it, but it's like possession being like a spiritual invasion, and then like showing that as like a physical form of invasion. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, it makes
it's
sense.
Like it
it's
just
like I looked at you and it's like I am physically entering you and you are now the vessel of my existence.
Yeah. It was just, it's really gross. It's really effective. And then it's really brutal when she comes back and she's like, the force attacked me. And everybody's like, you're just a junkie.
Yeah.
Go inside the room.
You have no credibility.
Right. But right after that scene, David goes in to kind of like console her because she's like just been in her room the entire time. And the look of fear on her face when she's sitting under the bunk bed and like it's kind of shadowed.
Yeah.
The
lighting was so good. And they
So
really
good.
made you feel like it was only the light from the hallway that was peering into the room.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of movies would try to do more to light up the room so you can see the setting, but they definitely wanted to encapsulate like she was really secluding herself in this room and she was not wanting any light to the point where she was so scared of what she saw that even complete darkness to where she didn't want anything to be seen, even if that creature was in the room with her. Like,
Dude.
she did not want to see it.
Dude,
And the way
anytime...
that she was like shuddering and she was like, wait.
Yeah, we have to go.
Like, it was just
Dude.
like she was paralyzed. There goes the pea popper. She was paralyzed with fear. Like, she could not even get the words out. So pressured.
It was very well done. She did a terrific job in that. And then anytime there's a movie and somebody's like, hey, there's something in the room with us, and nobody believes them, and then the character sees that thing in the room, I'm just like, oh my God, dude, I'm about to turn all the lights on. I gotta watch Tommy Boy after this.
Yeah. Yeah, to go back to the woods chasing, as uncomfortable as something like that is, which is basically like rapey.
Yeah.
It's like, it is terrible as it is and as triggering as it can be. It kind of, and it may not be a popular belief, but I feel like some people are like, well, that wasn't really necessary to put that in the movie. But to me, it's like, I think it was because it was kind of like a necessary evil. It was kind of like something that was necessary to show you how evil this thing is, right? And just to put into perspective how scared you should be.
Yeah.
And that something that this evil will not do.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, it has no regard for your soul or your body kind of thing. Yeah, it is definitely, it's a hard conversation to have being two men talking about this.
Yeah.
But I think it was all right. But yeah, it is, I don't know necessity, but it was effective. It was effective in like making me uncomfortable and making me terrified.
Yeah. I immediately go to like, damn, if I had a daughter that I might not feel this way about it, you know?
Yeah. And my daughter's name is Mia.
All right, chill over. See you later, right? Next
So
movie.
thanks. Like and subscribe.
It's so brutal. But yeah, the way that they definitely had that scene with her in the bedroom, and then having David kind of, even then at that moment, be like, "You really are just a junkie."
Yeah,
Like,
dude.
he was walking out. He's like, "You really are lost." Like they were right about you, kind of thing.
Yeah, and he's what does he say? He's like, just get some sleep, and then tomorrow, maybe you won't think we're such big assholes. And
Yeah.
he, like, closes the door on her. Hey, the demon's in this room with us. Okay, I'm gonna go close the door and leave you by yourself for a while.
Stop being a bitch. All right,
Yeah,
everything demons. What? You're the demon for lying to me.
dude. If there was like one thing I would critique about this movie, it's I do not like the casting of David in this. I felt like I don't know if it was just his character or the way that it was acted, but it just fell flat for me every time that he had a role to play in the plot of the movie.
In like an emotional sense, or just or like he didn't feel convincing.
He didn't feel convincing at all. And I don't know, yeah, like I said, I don't know if that was just the way that he was written or the way that it was delivered, but there's just a lot of lines where I'm like, I don't know. And maybe that was a point, because the character is supposed to be kind of disassociated from people. Like when their mom got in trouble, he kind of just took off and then was just like, I just got a new job. I couldn't come back.
That seems to be his personality, right? Like he seems to be an avoidant kind of person when it comes to conflict.
Yeah.
It did seem to be so much of a big deal to him to not be there whenever his mom was having a crisis. And he was scared to see some of the repercussions of his family's actions, and probably why he wasn't present with Mia when she was going through her thing, which led him to be surprised when he did find out that she did overdose 2 previous times. So he's clearly not in the picture for reasons, whether that's he really is like dedicated to his job, even though I don't think that's what it is. I think he runs from conflict.
Yeah.
And now he's here and he's having to kind of pick up the pieces of his absence. Would they be here if he was, present?
Yeah.
And he did make that apparent when he's like, "Are you promised to stay here to the very end this time?"
Right.
Sort of thing. So they kind of, put that in there that his character was a coward.
Yeah.
As the friend said, like, we were here when she went through all this. Where were you?
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
And it's
firsthand.
It's definitely shown through like Eric's disdain for him throughout the movie.
Because they were all friends. I mean, even in like the pictures, they were all hanging out.
Yeah.
They obviously all were really good friends prior to everyone kind of going their own ways.
Yeah, and getting possessed by demons or whatever.
Just another Thursday in the Campbell Remy production house.
Yeah, sorry, I lost my train of thought.
You're good. It's all going to be cut out.
Yeah, I don't.
That's all good. Yeah, no, I'm going to cut that out. I thought there was something that I probably derailed you.
No, I was just trying to figure out where to go from there, and I kind of.
Let's go to what else? So let's talk about the book. What details of the book do you remember?
Well, I don't think it's specifically said, but it is implied that it's made of human flesh. If it's following within the same, like, I guess not rules, but same universe as the originals and all that stuff. I just do not understand the concept of seeing something like wrapped in barbed wire that like you have to like pry open. And then just being like, okay, I'm not only going to look at this, I'm going to read it out loud.
Right.
Like that whole...
I don't even, other than like them just trying to take care of the cabin and get it cleaned up for the family's cabin's sake, like I don't even know why you would even go down there.
Dude.
Even take anything out other than to throw that shit away.
As soon as...
Like the fact alone that all that death and decay and no telling what kind of bacterial shit's growing on there, like why would you even open anything up? Like I'd have been like, burn this fucker to the ground.
Yeah That's why I didn't understand the point of staying once you go inside your house and you see that there's blood smeared on the ground, and then you go into the basement and there's literally like 100 dead cats strung up.
Was there a reason why those cats were struggling? Like, is there a lore reason behind that maybe I missed in the book? Because that's
just more of a dog family, Yeah. No, I think it was all part of the. I think it was all part of the ritual when they killed the daughter.
Is there some sort of like? Because I mean, obviously, we're looking at satanic rituals. So I mean, is there any sort of like biblical reason for cats to be used? Like, was there some sort of like belief that cats or something about cats needed to? Or am I like diving too deep into that? Like, I wonder if there's some sort of like belief about cats and cleansing, or I have no idea.
Yeah, the only thing I can think of involving cats and the undead is the movie The Mummy, where they say that cats were like the guardians to the underworld. Yeah, I don't think they they include.
Universe. I think they're the same universe, right? The Mummy and the Evil Dead, same universe. Yeah,
Same universe. Yeah, yeah.
waiting for Brendan Fraser to show up with a gun and be like, "What's
My
my
God.
here?"
And Benny's just trying to steal stuff the whole time.
And that's when he steals the book and brings it to the city and like, unleashes all its evil
right.
into the world.
They both do involve the Book of the Dead.
Maybe we found something.
A little shared universe, no big deal. That's what we're here to do,
Right.
to crack the case and bring the evidence to the audience. You know what I mean?
Solved. You heard it first here. All right, so cats, we don't know, but yeah, to bring up all that stuff, it's just like, why?
Yeah,
There's
there's
all the effort to open it up.
there's got to be more sterile ways to to detox from heroin.
Yeah. Well, I guess hindsight.
Oof. And then the flood happens, and you get all those soup cats under under the basement. This can't be good to walk through. I need a tetanus shot after this. Talk about a hairball, am I right? All right,
Dad joke. We got him.
that's what I'm here for.
So many dad jokes on these bacon trays. But yeah, I just don't understand why you would do all that. Let's talk about the deaths. Talk about the deaths. So I can't remember who it was. The nurse that went first, right?
Yeah.
And so you get the picture of Danny's the guy with the book who opened up the book.
Yeah.
So
Eric opened the book.
Eric. So
Yeah.
Eric, Danny's probably not even a character. David's the character. So, damn it. What was
I
his
think
name?
Olivia's the nurse.
Olivia, yeah, because she has
Yeah.
my wife's middle name. So Olivia dies first, and then in the book it shows like kind of like a preview of what's to come, right?
Yeah.
It shows that, she basically cut off her face. Whoever's in the book has like basically they're holding their face in one hand and in the other they're like holding a knife.
Yeah.
Like kind of like preludes to like what's going to happen, which I thought was like absolutely insane. And prior to all that, it shows that the whoever's being possessed is going to be scalded by hot water.
Yeah.
It goes into the shower, turns it all the way on. It's flashed into the fiery furnace, and like you're watching her skin
bubble up.
and I'm just going, my God, bro.
Yeah.
And so they pull her out. But yeah, so Olivia goes in, and you can talk about the scene.
Dude.
Let's set the scene, man.
So they're trying to help her out because Olivia is like she sees that like they're like second and third degree burns, which she talks about later about like needing to get her out of there. And then Mia just pops up, tackles Olivia, and just starts puking blood into Olivia's face. And then they finally they pry her off, and then Mia comes back with a shotgun, which they're like is bananas.
The boomstick.
And fires off a round, thank God it was a birdshot, into David's arm.
Yeah.
So all of this stuff are things that like it makes so much sense why nobody ran to go see what was going on with Olivia when she starts to turn. Like Eric is the only one that is like going in to check in on her.
Yeah.
Because David and Natalie are busy dealing with David's wounds.
Right. So immediately after getting puked on, Mia ends up getting thrown into the basement. Right.
That's right.
They end up going to the basement, and it's like, okay, shit's getting real. While Olivia is sitting on the couch, not doing anything to wipe up all the fucking Cheetos that are in her fucking hair. Like just fucking
Cheetos.
Dude, she looked like Cheetos, dude. Like it was like just Kool-Aid and Cheetos. I don't know what.
Some fiery hots.
Yeah. Mia was killing Kool-Aid and Cheetos on her last heroin bender. And it was all over Olivia's head. And the entire time I'm just going, "Look, crunchy." It was so gross, dude. Just like, she's not even doing anything. I immediately would have went into the shower and been like this bitch is great. Like, I've just been saying all sorts of crazy shit. Like, she's just sitting there in it. Like,
yeah.
The smell of vomit is so gross. It's enough.
Yeah, she's dry wiping the blood out of her face. And you're like, no, dude, get a little water on that.
Yeah, like, go wash yourself off, dog. Like, what are you doing? Like, just sitting there.
Yeah, that's when they get into the argument where, like, Natalie brings up that, like, we should have never, like, come here. Like, we're taking your advice and talking to Olivia. And she's pretty much, like, pushing the blame onto Olivia. And then David is like, well, Mia needs to be sedated more. So Olivia like gets up and she's like, okay. She starts walking to the room. And the moment that she grabs the supplies, or no, she's cleaning herself off, right? No, she's grabbing the supplies from the medicine cabinet. And then the mirror closes in and you just see what she's going to become.
Yeah. Which is so good. Which is another like shot of like how good the makeup is in that movie.
Yeah, yeah. So she understandably is terrified and starts to walk back and then freezes, but they don't show you her face. They just show that her body freezes. And
yeah,
like,
which was so good.
Dude.
And like the camera, like she just stands there.
Yeah.
Like it was so good. Like the music stops. I can't remember, but I remember it got like soft.
Yeah.
And it was almost like a drone. It was like
a drone note.
Yeah, like it was just Rose and I was going, like there's another movie that does that. And I'm like, oh God. But like, yeah, when that happened, I was going, it's just like a tense moment, you know?
Yeah,
and the way that the camera was shot on the ground and like,
there's
like this vault of darkness above her and she's just like frozen. Yeah. It was just so good. It was so good. But yeah.
So when she slammed the medicine cabinet, there was glass. I don't know if we need to go beat by beat, but essentially Eric discovers, he walks inside the room and you just hear, and it's so effective. It happens in Hereditary also. You just hear wet meat being cut.
That movie is a banger.
Dude, so good. Classic. It's a classic.
Another one.
But yeah, you just hear wet meat and like it's like that's getting cut and like my skin crawls at that sound. And then fucking Eric's like, hey, are you okay? She turns. Yeah, dude. I did laugh hella hard. I laughed hella hard when he slips on her like cheek.
Or it's the cheek. Yeah.
And he just flies backwards and hits his and he just like freezes. I'm like, dude. But yeah, this movie has so many good scenes of like brutal violence, and it's not done in the same way. To me, it's not the same thing as like Hostel, where it's like torture porn stuff. This is like you're just watching. I don't know. There's something different in my head between like somebody who's like a regular guy being super sadistic and like they're being a demon possessed and is coming after you and you're getting cut up.
Right.
But it's got one of the gnarliest scenes, like where Eric's moving, or he's pulling a needle out of his eyeball, and you're just like, oh God.
And it's close up too, and you're like watching the skin draw back on it. Like it looks so real.
So
and
good.
How unfortunate, but fortunate he was that like he didn't get popped in the eye.
Yeah.
Like it was crazy.
Not that it did him a lot of good later on, but it's good that he didn't get popped in the eye at that moment.
Yeah, so she goes, boy survives, and from this point on, he pretty much gets the worst of it.
Which, honestly, he kind of deserves. Like, he is the worst character.
It was probably there to kind of satiate the people that didn't like them, or didn't like him for that reason. Just kind of like, good, yeah, you get what you deserve.
Yeah, you read the book. You know not to. You know better. So this is what you get.
Yeah.
But while David is helping Eric, and they're talking about, that's where Eric is finally like, all right, so I might have read a book. I might have
learned Latin.
Yeah. It was cracking me up too, because like when all this stuff happens, like Eric keeps going back to the book to like flip through it and just finds like the next thing that's going to happen to somebody.
Yeah.
Like, get ahead of it a little bit. Like read forward.
Yeah. He even tries to burn that bitch.
Dude, that one was gnarly because you just see him. David goes inside the room and you just see Eric kneel down in front of a fire, and he's like, "Yeah, that it's so effective." Where he's just like, I thought that this would have worked," he says like, "I don't know why I would have thought that this would have worked," and then you just see the book in a flame, unaffected.
Yeah,
it's so good, so good.
So David's girlfriend gets next, which she gets it pretty bad too, right? So she's like goes down because Mia's like crying into the basement, and then she essentially kind of Mia basically just like claws up on top of her and insulting her, and David essentially, or was it David that came by and picked her up out? Yeah. So David comes up, or he comes to, I guess I don't remember the details so much, but
the one thing I did want to put or say just to add to that scene is I love the tension building in there where Natalie realizes that Mia is still like, whether she believes she's possessed or just insane, she knows that Mia's not okay. So she goes to run away, And they do such a good job of tension building in that scene because she crawls out of the basement and then like right when you think like she's safe, she gets dragged back inside.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then that's where you see in the trailer they show where she Mia's like licking the blade and like cutting her tongue. It's so gnarly. But eventually David waltzes back and he's like, "Oh, Natalie, where are you at?" But he pulls her out. He latches that door, bolts it, and chains it just like in the original. In that process, Natalie had gotten her hand bit by Mia.
Yeah.
So then they go back to talk. David goes back to talk to Eric, and I think that's when Eric
the fire
reveals
scene,
everything.
right?
Say again.
Which is the fire scene, which I think he's trying to burn the book.
That's right. Yeah.
And meanwhile, all that's going on, she's becoming like idled hand, like her hands start to mutate. And then she's like,
The only way to stop the spread is to cut my arm off.
Yeah, and then Mia's like, I love that scene where Mia is just like peeking through, and you just see those like super, don't cut it.
yeah, they really got the demon's like sadistic desires and was just, like I live for chaos.
And then she's like she eventually is in the basement just like cackling at everybody being tortured. There's that scene that I thought was pretty effective when David and Eric do come out of the room and they see Natalie and she's kind of hunched over and she's like, I really do feel better now. And like her arm is like barely hanging on by like a vein and then it just drops.
Yeah. So good, dude. So good.
So good.
Yeah. So at this point, my medical side comes on. I'm like, I wonder if they could have just like cauterized that shit. You know what I mean? Like got a frying pan and just like heated it up. Like, of course, you're gonna need to go to the hospital and you're at risk for infection and stuff. But I mean, like, you could probably stop the bleeding for a minute. Like,
you know what's funny is that I was thinking about the same thing when Eric gets stabbed in the chest. When like the blood is just like pouring out of it.
They should have never pulled that motherfucker out. To tell you the truth.
Really?
Yeah, you never want to pull anything out. Like if you get stabbed in the chest, you don't pull it out. You leave it there.
That's good to know. The next time it happens, I'll make sure I leave it.
Hopefully, never. It's basically stopping. Like when you worry about bleeding, right? So it's in there. It's closing off the circuit for blood, right? The second you pull it out, now you have a short. Now blood's just kind of pouring out. That's keeping the blood where it's at. So like
it's like
you
a cork.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah. So you kind of want to keep it there. So everything in your mind's like, pull it out. They're gonna die. Like no, don't pull it out.
Don't do that. Don't do that.
They're gonna die quicker if you take it out. There might be some caveats about that. So every time they pulled it out, I was like, oh, God, why'd you do that, bro? And then immediately everything started pouring out. I'm like,
Yeah, the amount of lost blood in this movie and the character doesn't die, I was pretty shocked at. But I forget the plot details on what happens after that, but eventually Natalie ends up turning into a demon. That's going to be really funny if we have the names wrong, and it's Olivia is the girlfriend, and Natalie, I can just imagine.
Olivia's a nurse, I remember. So I was like, oh, Dina was a nurse. Her middle name is this, and
Gotcha. Okay, cool. So we're on track.
And if please forgive us.
But like Eric is pretty much just like, you need, like, I read the entire book and you need to kill your sister. And David is just like, but I avoid conflict. What? Yeah. And then Natalie pops out with a nail gun.
I wonder if he was thinking, he was like, yeah, okay, that's a good idea. Let's go kill her.
I've been waiting for somebody to tell me that.
I never liked my sister. Yeah, let's go do that.
I moved to Chicago to get away from her.
Now this can be permanent. This is good.
Then I have no responsibilities.
That's right.
Because my girlfriend's surely not going to live through this.
Dude, but that whole scene where Natalie is like changed and beating the crap out of those dudes with a nail gun first. One of the most high-powered nail guns I think I've ever seen. And then beating the crap out of them with the crowbar. That's a really effective shot where they show, because Natalie has like got like a really kind of like tiny frame where her arm is raised with the crowbar, and like they like
silhouetted
she freezes with it for a second.
A light in the background.
Yeah.
Which was like the stark black arm with the crowbar silhouetted by the light in the background. It was just, some of the pictures that they captured was just
so good. It's so good.
And then the angle, like where it's just like down on him and she's just.
Yeah, it's terrifying.
Yeah.
Then, I forget what they end up doing. Oh, David like shoots her in the arm, and then I'm assuming she dies of blood loss, right?
Yeah, she just kind of fades into black.
Yeah. Yeah, I did think that was probably the most brutal scene in the movie, which I think is saying a lot because that movie is really, really brutal.
And
But yeah, just seeing,
definitely the second most brutal.
yeah, the Eric at that point, I'm starting to feel like, okay, all right, I get it. He read from the book, but give the guy a break.
Back off. he paid his dues. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. And then so Natalie dies, and then like David carries Eric out, and they're trying to get ready to leave, and David understands that he has to kill his sister. So he's like, I know what I need to do. And I did not like the line, but Eric is like, because David's like, please don't die. I mean, Eric's like, dying doesn't sound so bad, but I just don't want to become the devil's bitch. And I was like, well, it just seemed a little. But David goes back in to light the house on fire, and lightning strikes a tree, right? And I was trying to figure out if there was any symbolism for that.
I think that might have been like to represent the life force of the demon.
Okay.
Maybe.
Okay.
At least its power over Mia.
Yeah.
Which I guess if you're thinking like, why wasn't it lit the entire time? I think it was just for that moment to kind of give that symbolism after everything kind of went down at the end of the scene. You know?
Yeah, that does make sense because after the burial, but not to jump too far ahead, because David sees it lit and then he's like, okay, I can't do it. So he devises a plan to bury his sister. So he goes back down in with like I think a tranquilizer or something like that. He tries to sedate her, but she overpowers him. And then right when she's about to kill him, Eric comes in to save the day, and he gets stabbed and he dies of his wounds.
In the kitten soup.
In the kitten soup, dude. There's probably a lot like dirtier ways to die, but that is pretty foul.
Yeah.
I did like, it felt like, I don't know if redemption's the right word, but Eric's like final words to David is, hey man, I missed you. You know that, right, buddy? And then he dies. And I thought that was so cool.
He knows he's going to die, and he knows he said a bunch of mean shit to him, and then he's like, kind of getting the air cleared, and he's just, basically saying like, I miss you. You know? Now he's about to die. I want to make peace. Like, I really don't hate you. I was mad at you for sure, but I missed you because I know the part that I miss about you is there.
Yeah.
And I miss you.
It was super effective.
Oh, right. No.
I won't do it. And then, so David buries his sister, and then like, it's cool because they share a scene where like the demon has possessed Mia, and he's kind of like unloading all these like secrets that are alluded to between the two of them about their mom having mental illness, which I thought was so effective because then you understand also why everybody thinks that she might just be going crazy. And so he buries her, and then you hear her heartbeat. Like the audience can hear her heartbeat, and then you see the flame on the tree extinguish. So then he goes to try to save her. At first you don't think that she's alive, and then she like pops out like when he turns her back. So he's like, okay, now I got to get us out of here. So he goes back in. He's like, I don't have my keys, which I love because why would you go back inside that cabin for literally anything? And it's like he has to go back in. And right when he's about to leave, I think he sees a picture of the four of them when they were kids. And then Eric's possessed body hits him with a pair of pliers in the jugular, or is that the jugular?
Yeah. Hits him. Yeah.
Yeah. So with David's, like his last moments, he shoots the shotgun and explodes like a gasoline tank, and it sets the house on fire. But that also is the fourth death that they needed or that the demon needed to come back. So like right when that happens, it starts raining blood.
So I didn't catch that. There need to be how many deaths?
I think it was 4 deaths.
Was that in the book? I guess I totally missed that.
Yeah, they were. I don't know about David's, but I know that's like what triggered the demon to come back.
Yeah, I didn't know that. I didn't know that there was a mechanism in play there.
The only reason I know that is because I read it. Like it kind of glanced over it when I read the plot details.
Okay,
on it.
Yeah, I did not know that. That's interesting.
Yeah, so that's the reason that demon was able to come back, from what I understand. But it's like,
and not like a specific body to kind of need.
Yeah.
I
it's
thought
like Beetlejuice. I said it once, but it's like saying the name 3 times. He needs 4 bodies.
I thought that was interesting whenever Mia was being buried, that the demon was trying different mechanisms to kind of get David engaged. And at first it used like pity. And then when pity didn't work, she decided to anger him.
Yeah.
And then it was just kind of like, this patient, like a person trying to provoke something, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
To harm her or whatever. But he was, didn't take. I thought that was interesting. But yeah, so how's that?
No, that's a really good catch because I don't think I ever noticed that. I just noticed that he got emotion, that it got emotion out of him for it, and then he was just like, "Look, I'm sorry, I couldn't handle it."
Yeah. But to the most intense scene of the movie.
It rains blood and a doppelganger demon body comes out of the dirt.
Yeah. And this whole scene is absolutely crazy. Like,
it's bananas.
Nonstop. 5 minutes of just terror, agony the entire time.
And like, I was thinking about it from a practical, like how much blood was being rained down for.
Does it explain like what that is? I mean, I imagine it's probably just a part of like the spell that the demon has. Like that's the supernatural. Because it felt like everything was pretty realistic in the movie. You know what I mean? And as far as realistic as a demon possession could be,
right?
You add like, okay, now it's raining blood. How does that happen? Like you kind of just have to, unless there was like some sort of logical explanation, you just kind of, okay, this is just kind of like the wickedness or the aura or the spell that this demon has basically like, I am now awake.
I'm here.
Yeah, sort of thing.
Yeah, no, I didn't read anything about the reason for it raining blood. I think it was just,
what's the most metal thing we can do to end this scene? Rain blood.
Isn't there a Slayer album named Rain and Blood or something?
Yeah.
He's just a huge Slayer head. But and this movie does such a great job of, we were talking about earlier, maybe we'll get more into it, but just homages to the original, where Mia is running in fear and then she finds a chainsaw in the cabin, like tool shed.
Mm-hmm.
And she cranks that thing up, she chops off one of the demon's legs, and then the demon just drops a Jeep on her.
Yeah.
On her hand.
Which, takes away Mia's hand.
Dude, do you think you could do that? I was trying to think, like, if
Go
ahead.
I'm telling you right now, I will do anything to survive.
Yeah?
Anything.
I
think you get to a point where people in your brain, whether some people want to say it's realistic or not, that you're like, okay, I'm going to just lay here and die, or I'm going to survive. And I don't think it's like there's nothing in between when you're caught in a situation like that. Like, I'm going to rip my hand off and we're going to fucking go, or I'm just going to lay here and die.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think that given her history with opioids and stuff like that, like, coming back from overdosing and like going back and then fighting, going back and fighting, like she's a fighter.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that was, I felt like way in her character. Like if someone was like, that was out of character for her, like, I don't think so. If you've met anyone that's like struggled with anything like that, like they're a fighter,
Yeah.
And that came to light in that situation. Like she was gonna fight. She wanted to give up and die. She would have done something to do that prior to this intervention taking place. Like she's obviously a fighter.
That's a good point.
You know what I mean? Like as much as those things can, bring you down in life, people always have the option to end their life and, not to get too serious, but she obviously had a fight. She wanted to fight for her life because, she wants that life that everyone's entitled to, and she fought. And I think that was well in their character. And I would say like, I would do the same thing. I would have,
I don't know. I wouldn't be able to shred anymore. So what's the point?
You wouldn't be able to shred anyway.
I was wondering how much of it might have been that the Jeep kind of might have already taken off a bit. So it's not like you're ripping a completely attached hand.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if it would just deglove your hand with skin and just have like a mangled, like meaty, leftover.
Just a little strong hand.
Yeah, but it ripped right off all of it. So, and the way that she like positioned her arm into the chainsaw was probably one of those homages that you were like excited about, that I got excited about.
Dude, I think everybody, because I saw it in theaters and I remember that getting a huge pop.
Yeah.
And then, she just proceeds to cut the man in half.
That right there with the music, the shot, the blood raining down, and just the close-ups to her face with everything spraying and then like back to the demon, like just like it was so intense. Like it went on longer than it like needed to in a practical sense, but went on just enough for the cinematic experience.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
It was so brutal. You're just like, yes, like the entire time, like get this mother. Like,
Dude.
yeah.
Yeah, it was epic. The whole movie is super, super epic. And then like it stops raining blood, and then it kind of just cuts to credits after that, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And it really had me hoping at the end of the movie that they were going to do a continuation of the story, which we probably don't have any time to talk about the next installment for the movie. But I think if they wanted, I feel like if they wanted to make like a series of them, they could do it if they wanted to. I just think they have to be extremely careful.
I had read that the plan was for them to make an Army of Darkness 2, and then I think another Evil Dead, like a sequel to Mia's story, and then they come together. Like, so it would have been Ash and Mia together. But I guess instead of making Army of Darkness 2, they made Ash versus the Evil Dead TV show, which rips. And then it's very true. Say again? Yeah, it's true to where the Ash character is at the end of Army of Darkness, and like how cocky he is, and like the comedy and stuff like that. Yeah, because they give a little nod at the end of the movie. They show Bruce Campbell's there in like a silhouette, and he just like turns the camera and says "groovy," which is so sick. Yeah, so sick.
I didn't know if that was going to happen, but I waited to the end of the credits anyway, because I think the Marvel Universe instilled that general practice for cinema.
For sure.
So you're like, what's happening? But yeah.
I did do a little bit of research, and I found some interesting things. So David, Eric, Mia, Olivia, and Natalie. It's if you take the first initial spells demon. Yeah. And then yeah, what else? I don't know. I think I just this time around watching it, noticed all of the different, like, the homages, the tool shed with the chainsaw, the fact that Ash's car was rusted out, and that's what Mia's sitting on when David first comes up to her to talk to her, like when he first gets to the cabin.
Okay.
Yeah, there's all kinds of like little winks and stuff like that they're giving. Like I even thought that the fight scene between Mia and David in the basement, how it was like half filled with water, and he keeps getting thrown around from wall to wall, was very reminiscent of like Army of Darkness when he gets thrown inside the pit.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was such a good, well executed movie with a lot of love for the original franchise, which I thought was so rad. And like as a fan of the original franchise, I think that's what you want to see. You want to see somebody that loves it as much as you do, but put like a little bit of a different spin on it.
The spin was perfect.
Yeah, I thought so too.
I think I definitely liked it more as a serious thing. I think it can be really tricky when you try to make things comedic, especially with the kind of absurdity spin that, Campbell can put on things without it being like, it's going to be very niche. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think they did a good job of like inviting a general horror fan's attention to the franchise, but not so much where you dilute it with, conservatism. Like it was definitely kept true to the brutalness and the everything that the original three had as far as like gore and stuff like that. And I think
absolutely. And I think one of the things that you risk when you try to remake something, like if they were to try to remake Evil Dead or Army of Darkness with like somebody different cast as Ash, like it is Bruce Campbell's role.
Yeah.
So like it would be like recasting, which I know that they're planning on doing, but like recasting Wolverine. It's like at a certain point, like that actor and that part are synonymous with each other. So I think that if they would have went the route of like even if the character was nothing like Ash, if you have Ash in the movie, you're already setting yourself up with an expectation that I think is that's too big a hill to climb.
Right.
And I think that inherently the plot of a movie where a group of friends go to a cabin and they find a book and they read from it and then they become like possessed is inherently a very terrifying story.
For sure. Yeah. So again, highly rated movie. Everyone that loves horror should go see it. I think anyone should see it. Anyone that's not queasy, but any horror fan needs to watch this movie if you haven't already watched it.
It is a perfect blend of like supernatural gore and like legitimately scary, because I feel like it's very uncommon for movies to get that right. Well, yeah, obviously horror movies, but I think what you were saying with like James Wan is he would do that. Like where I felt even like the movies that were more low budget, like Dead Silence, the story is scary, so you're like invested in it, and then like everything else like kind of falls in, like, because you're buying into the story, you're buying into everything else.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Very tastefully done. It was really good. I give it a 8.5 out of 10.
Yeah. Yeah. I would probably agree. It's not. Yeah, you're right, because it's really hard to say that something's perfect, but I think that this movie is as close as you can get for what they're doing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think it's one of the best in that genre.
For sure. Yeah. And that director, Fede Alvarez, does an amazing job.
He has a lot of good movies that I didn't know that he did.
Dude, I realized because I talked to you before the pod about it, and I thought he was the director of The Flash, but I got that confused. So the other guy's name is Andy, starts with an N. I don't want to butcher it, but he directed it, and I thought that he was the same director as this, but yeah.
I need to do an It podcast.
Dude, let me know.
If you can be the guy.
Take me to Derry. Let's go.
Let's go to Derry. Every 27 years is what I think. 23, 20-something years.
I think it's 27.
Yeah, 20-something. Every cycle we'll go. Yeah, I didn't realize that when you told me that he did this movie. I looked him up, and I didn't know that he did Alien Romulus, which I thought was literally probably the third best Alien movie.
Ooh, tell me more, real quick. What are the other two?
Alien movies?
Yeah.
I mean, Alien and Aliens.
Yeah? You're not a big Covenant guy?
Covenant was good. It was good. So, okay, my favorite Alien movies are obviously Alien, Aliens. Then you had Prometheus, which I thought was absolutely stellar. Covenant was good. And then Romulus. Covenant, out of those four, is probably my least favorite, but it's Covenant by itself. If you take away the rest of the four that I named and had Covenant and then the rest of the Alien movies, like Covenant is easy, the best one out of the rest of them.
Yeah.
Resurrection was okay, but then it just gets kind of, like, they all kind of just get kind of wonky. But I enjoy them because I love Alien. I love the idea of a biological perfect organism.
Yeah.
That's unkillable.
Yeah.
And then even the concept of Predator versus Alien is badass because you have like the ultimate predator that can kill anything going against the one thing that can survive anything. It's the perfect fight. You know what I mean?
What terrible executions they had, but
yeah, I know. Like, it's perfect if it can be done correctly, but it was not executed. Like, the bones are there. It's just
yeah.
But yeah, so I was pleasantly surprised with Romulus. I'm always skeptical when I go into a movie and it's a bunch of kid actors. Me just being an old man now, or getting into the old man phase where I'm just like, oh, it's a bunch of kids. But that movie was phenomenal.
And I think that goes again. I think Fede Alvarez, his approach it's perfect. It's what you want when somebody takes over a franchise. You have to have the love for the source material in order to add anything to it. And yeah. I saw that one in theaters too, and that one was phenomenal. So good.
Hell yeah, dude. Well, we got to have you back for it. And we can talk about the next Evil Dead movie as well.
Yeah, would love to.
Wasn't as good as Evil Dead, I think, but it was definitely very good.
Really good, yeah.
Yeah. I didn't realize he did Don't Breathe, which was a good one. I think that's the same actress as Mia.
Yeah.
And then, the list here is just so it's good.
I haven't seen Don't Breathe yet, but I want to go check it out. Yeah, I looked up the IMDb before we started just to double check, and that's when I realized that I was mixing up two directors. But I hear a lot of good things about Don't Breathe.
Don't Breathe is good. If you love the tense moments in this movie, it's like that the entire time.
Oh, that's rad. Yeah. I definitely have to check it out.
You're terrified the entire time. Realistic terrified.
Yeah, I read that he turned down directing like a Marvel movie and instead created the Don't Breathe stuff. So I like that. I like that he's like, I don't know. I think I read that he had said like he was worried about having creative control, and he knew that he wouldn't in a Marvel movie. So he just instead like wrote and directed, from what it sounds like, a really good horror movie instead.
Yeah,
I like when directors are smart enough to know their limits with things, and they take chances on themselves. Absolutely. Usually, it comes out pretty good.
Yeah. I'm glad that he didn't do that, because I think that was what other movie they did that? Christopher Nolan does that as well. He does like Inception, Interstellar. He likes to take full creative control, and I know that sometimes that can be looked at as like narcissistic, but it's like, if you're going to make something and you have a very specific plan in regard to like a creation, you should be allowed to have as much creative control over it, because it's something that you made, you know what I mean? And I support it 100%,
Dude, speaking of Christopher Nolan, I listened to your guys' Inception podcast, and that was amazing. I look forward to if you guys do more on Nolan.
Oh, we're going to do more.
Yeah.
I think my friend Victor, he loves the Nolan flicks. I think he's going to do Interstellar with me. He's going to watch Tenet. I think Tenet takes a couple watches to get that one. That one was like,
dude,
have you seen that one?
It's a box of farts.
Yeah. After the first time I watched it, I was like, okay, we're immediately going to go to Ending Explained because
right. Yeah.
I was like, what did I get myself into?
Yeah.
So Nolan's one of those guys where he's like, I need full control, which I totally respect. I don't knock on you unless you just suck. And I'm like, no, you need it.
Yeah. Well, no, I think Nolan's proven himself because even with Tenet, I was like, this is still probably better than more than half of the movies that came out that year for sure.
Yeah.
And that's like, in my opinion, his if I were to rank them, that'd be at the bottom.
Yeah.
But yeah, like Memento's fire.
Yeah. Which like, you look at, and I was talking to a buddy of mine what's the war one?
Dunkirk.
I was like,
dude,
that was a great movie, but it was not a great Nolan movie. And the only reason I say that is because to me, thematically, especially when he's making movies like Inception, there seems to be like a very deep undertone of some sort of emotion that I didn't feel that I got in Dunkirk. Now, there are moments in Dunkirk where like Nolan's really good at exposing like raw human emotion.
Mm-hmm.
And there's that moment in Dunkirk where they're all under that boat and they're arguing to get that guy to, put that guy out so the rest of them can live.
Yeah.
There's this fucking moment when you're like, are these people really going to dime this dude out who, at the end of the day, was fighting with a regime that was doing bad things. But like, this dude is a person too.
Yeah.
Like he might not agree with everything that the political climate is telling him to do. Dude's probably got a family and kids and he's like, trying to live his life too. He just grew up in a different spot of the world where, they had a different belief system.
Yeah. That conflict in morality is like a really interesting thing to play with.
He did that so well in The Dark Knight. Whenever you had all the prisoners on one boat and all the other people, you really were like, the prisoners like did the right thing.
Yeah.
And it exposed all the people that weren't like, they had their chance. And they
Yeah. That's such a good, effective line to show how like rotten that dude was.
Jesus Christ. Like Nolan is so good. Like I'm looking at my thighs. Not that I'm in my underwear. I just have nut hugger shorts on. Well, they're hugging nuts now because they're right. Not that I was thrusting talking about. I was like, Christopher Nolan. I'm over here.
Checking out my thighs.
But Nolan, he's such a G. He's like, I think 20 years from now, people are going to be like, dude, Nolan was one of the greats.
Yeah.
I think it's hard to measure these things in present time, and he's also going to do the Odyssey.
Yeah, with Tom Holland, right? And Matt Damon. Yeah, that's going to be fire. Dude.
Well, thank you for coming on, dude. Doing this one. I want to have you back. Let's get you in on it for sure.
Yeah, I'd love to, man. I'd love to.
It's another one of the horror bangers that needs to be watched.
So good. And Loki would love to talk about the made-for-TV movie, the one with Tim Curry.
We can definitely do that.
Okay.
I don't think it wouldn't have been as good without Tim Curry. Tim Curry was so good with his like lip curl.
I don't think there's another scary movie that terrifying that's like not rated R.
He's got such a scary face. Like
We All Float.
Yeah.
Dude, yeah. Because they're like bulging, and they're like his eyes are bulging, and they're like with his face painted so white, it's like his eyes look almost yellow. Yeah, it's really good. It's really terrifying. But yeah, man, thank you so much for having me on.
Do you have anything you want to put out before you go?
No. Just happy to be here, man. I love hearing and seeing everything that you got going on.
Hell yeah, dude.
Thanks for having me on.
I can't wait for you to share some of your stuff.
Thanks, man. Listen to Ingrata Hardcore, or they're Ingrata. They're a hardcore band in Sacramento. They're amazing.
There you go. You heard it here. Ingrata.